Today's the day the Camaro is finally getting some love. Got a little special treat in store for the car, but I've got a lot of parts for this thing and the exhaust right now is just in the way. I've been waiting for weeks to put this stuff on the car. A big winter storm here in Kentucky, so everything's been kind of on hold, including the delivery of this stuff. It took 3 weeks to get here. Here's the lowdown on the parts we're installing today. This is the suspension engineering or speed engineering torque arm. The brackets and stuff are in the box. This is a tunnel mount version. And over here we've got the Panhard relocation bar for the upper part of the Panhard bar. Here in the trunk we've got the most exciting part, and that is these 1 7/8" headers as well as the True Dual 3-inch exhaust kit. Unfortunately, I'm not sponsored as much as I'd love to be by Speed Engineering. I have their parts on the Vet as well, but I'm gonna put these on the Camaro and we'll see how they are. First things first, we went ahead and jacked the car up off the ground as best as I could. I have a pretty crap jack. It leaks, one of the cylinders does, and it doesn't go up that high anymore. We're gonna see if we can yank this old exhaust off. I was gonna try to salvage it, but I think I'm gonna have to cut it right here. That way we can listen to this thing straight piped. Because the new torque arm is gonna go in here and it can't clear this, the bracket can't. So probably gonna, like I said, cut it here, and then we'll start it up and listen to it. And then we're gonna go ahead and take this out, the torque arm out, and then we'll do the Panhard bar last. Yep, looks like we need a saw for this. Goodbye. 30 minutes in, I smashed my finger really bad and decided to take a lunch break. Not drinking right now. I really, really want to. It's a sad day, isn't it?
Maybe for you.
Caitlin ran out there to my rescue. Yeah?
I heard him scream extremely loudly, and I said, "Shoot, I need to go check on him." I thought something was really wrong. I said, "What's wrong? Are you okay, honey?" I just smashed my finger real bad.
Yeah, I cut the muffler off, which I just showed you guys, and then to get the mid pipe out of the little flange thing, I was yanking on it, and then of course it broke free, and I smashed the hell out of my finger on the rear end. So I screamed. Yep. And then it took the lunch break. Well, as it would turn out, I can't get the exhaust off of there even after I cut it without taking the upper Panhard bar out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Looking at it from the rear, those 3 bolts up there hold this bar, the top bar in. There's a single bolt over there. It doesn't look like there's any pressure on the rear end from it. I think it is just a reinforcement. All right, here is the lower Panhard bar, and then right up above it, there are 3 bolts. In my case, these are a 15mm. They seem to be really, really, really tight. So I'm gonna go grab some WD-40 and maybe try to help it out a little bit. And I'm probably gonna have to get a breaker bar. Take 2. Just like I planned, she's free. Looks like there's looks like there's 2 little screws holding it to the gas tank bracket. I'm gonna see if I can get those out, but probably just gonna cut them. Not exactly sure why I look like a ghost right now, but the 2 little bolts across the bar are 7mm. So the bolt holding the passenger side back of this upper Panhard bar thing is a 18mm nut, and the other side I used a 7/8 wrench to hold. And now we should just be able to kind of get in there and yank this thing out. As you could probably guess, I went ahead and cut it again. And I think if I could tell you a little bit of advice, if you got your stock exhaust, I would say to cut it right up in here somewhere ahead of the axle, and you should be able to separate at the back, yank the front portion out with 1 cut. But we all learn somehow, right? All right, change of plans. We just waxed the driver's side right here behind where it mounts on the trans. And we're about to go over there and do the passenger side real quick too. Well, the weird shaped pipe on the passenger side has been the demise of my blade. As you can see, it's ate almost every single tooth off of it, even all the way at the tip, and then made it look like a noodle. But I'm not gonna let my boy blade fall like that. We're gonna find a new one and get back up in there. I don't know what kind of Superman metal type shit this thing's made out of, but now we're down 1 cutoff wheel and 2 Sawzall blades. This thing's barely hanging on in there right now, so this should be the end of it, but man, I'm impressed. That's all I gotta say. That little like ellipse pipe situation they got going on there. Maybe it's strong enough to jack the car up by. We've got the factory exhaust dropped out of the car now. We're gonna get back underneath the car now and jack the rear end up. I'm not really sure if when I take the torque arm loose, if this thing's gonna try to dump on me or not. So we're gonna put a jack underneath of it just in case. And from there, we should be able to pull it out of the transmission mount. And I don't know if we'll be able to get the bolts out, so we'll probably just leave them in there. Where could we possibly be going, honey?
The parts store.
Yeah, nobody's surprised. I gotta switch the U-joints in the drive shaft and I don't have a press, so we're gonna go get one of those little ball joint presses and we'll check back in.
This is Miss Roxy keeping an eye, making sure that she's ready to go.
All right, we've got a 13/16, not the right size. We're gonna see if we can get these off of here real quick. Got an adjustable wrench here. I'm gonna see if I can get that up there. All right, here goes. One down. These things are freaking huge, guys. Anyway, rear end dead kind of angled down a little bit there. So we're gonna see if this thing tries to kick me in the face or not. All right. Nice and easy, nice and easy. When I put this back together, I'm definitely gonna put these both down because I'm personally more worried about them falling out and killing me rather than hanging in there and being loose whenever the nut comes off, if worst case it does. I'm gonna see if I can fight the torque arm out without having to take the transmission mount thing loose. And it would seem that I am gonna have to take the transmission mount loose. At this point in time, we only need to break loose the torque arm cinch bolt that's up here on the top of the transmission mount. And when we pull that out, you should be fine to go ahead and take it apart. I was able to get it out with a 15 and a 16 millimeter wrench. That's not exactly what's the right size. You need two 15s, probably a short socket and a wrench. And that'll get you off better, but I was able to cram it in there because I didn't want to get out from underneath it here again. Also, new to talking to the camera, some of my neighbors are having a party maybe, and they were looking around like somebody's insane. So I'm the insane one, I guess. The torque arm should slide right out of here. Let's give it a try. All right, just like that. Unless you drop the transmission crossmember, you're not gonna be able to get your cinch bolt out. So in my case, for now, I'm just gonna put the bolt back in there. I mean, it's probably a matter of ounces. I'm gonna be replacing both U-joints on this drive shaft. You're gonna need a 7/16. The 4 saddle bolts on this thing are what you're taking out with it. You'll probably need to pull your parking brake if your back wheels are up in the air. And you'll probably also have to rotate this thing around a couple times because it's much easier to get to the bolts whenever they're kind of pointed down like this. And then once you get those out, just pull the drive shaft down, and the front is a slip yoke so you can pull it straight out the back. Personally, I usually just like to pull one of the bolts out and let the saddle kind of hang there. On this one, I had a couple of cheater devices. I brought a hammer with me, and I also brought a big wrench to kind of like, you know, do the thing with this, like the little hook thing. These things can be pretty tight depending on when they were last apart, or really just who put them on there. I'll probably put them on there at Hulk strength because I am afraid of them coming out. Yeah. And then get it out of the bolts here. Oof, and get hit in the head with a freaking cat. Excuse that. And then you're just gonna pull it right out of the transmission real quick. Let's take a quick look at the original one, the stamped steel on the right, and our new tubular unit. Once again, this one is a tunnel mount and not a trans mount like the original one. So this one doesn't go all the way up, and it moves the instant center of the car back toward the rear axle. This one has a new bushing from the last owner, but the pinion angle is so far out on the car that I needed something adjustable, and that's the main thing that this one does. On top of being a lot stiffer and not being able to flex, which isn't a problem right now because the car doesn't make that much horsepower, but it will be soon. The new one has solid rod ends at the back of this thing, and it has the upgraded polyurethane energy suspension bushing in the front. It also has a drive shaft loop built in. And as an added bonus, the factory bolts that come out of this thing are gonna go back in there just fine. Had to call for help. Apparently kids aren't supposed to touch the U-joints. Minor interruption here, guys. We're going down to Knoxville, Tennessee today to pick up a set of wheels, I think. I hope. We're doing a little trade. When I got the Camaro, it came on these torque thrust wheels. They're pretty nice, and honestly, I like the way they look, but they're heavy, And if we can get something a little bit more drag racing incline out of them, I'm pretty happy. We just made it to Corbin. We're at exit 25. I can't remember what road this is, but we're about 100 miles in, I'd say. Thinking about stopping to get an energy drink. And a lot of you guys probably don't know, but I'm pretty regimented when it comes to my fitness and my goals there. But my girlfriend didn't come with me tonight, so I'm gonna go ahead and have a cheat meal and eat something delicious. I don't know what yet, but it's probably gonna be some slime bag fast food, because that's what I crave the most anymore. We have arrived at the meat spot, some random Knoxville, Tennessee Walmart. Me and the 9 packing out here. We're gonna see what's up. Everything should go smooth, but you know, better safe than sorry. All right there, ladies and men, we got these wheels and we only got 19 shank lug nuts instead of 20. Checking in here today, guys. We made it back from the wheel trip. They're really, really disgusting now that I see them in the daylight, but let's check these babies out. Got a set of race cars. It doesn't look like they've been polished since they came out of the factory. We've got a set of 15 by 8s. I was hoping for 15 by 10s, but better than what I had, and 15.375 fronts. Not sure what front tire I'm going to put on there. It seems really difficult to get a tire that's speed rated past 120 miles an hour for them. We'll see what we can do. I'm thinking maybe a 185 60 15s probably. Not sure yet. Here's what we're left with after just doing a quick wash on these things. They definitely need a good polish. Sorry for the darkness here, guys, but if you're looking at the torque arm with the back of it that way, the bottom rod end should be the adjustable one. The front of it goes like this, and you're going to need to torque this bushing before you put it in the car. You also need to throw a little bit of grease in here, some type of marine grease so it won't wash away as best. I only have high temp multi-vehicle, so I'm going to take this part and throw some in there. Then I'm going to torque this to 46 foot-pounds. I got that spec from the UMI tunnel mount torque arm. They said to do 40 to 50 foot-pounds on the front. My torque wrench doesn't do 45, so we're going to do 46. Go ahead and adjust the rear rod ends to where they'll fit in the bracket. That way you don't have to fight it underneath the car like I just did. Here in the back, the bracket didn't really want to fit, so I ended up having to smack it on there with a hammer after I gave it a little bend. An additional note that I forgot to mention while I was under the car, the 2 bolts that go down through the diff, make sure you don't use the washers that come on the top of this factory. Quick check-in, these back 2 bolts on the diff right there, I took those to 100 foot-pound with a drop of red Loctite, couldn't help myself. These ones in front of it will probably get about 50, I'm gonna guess. That's what my speculation is. They have like locking style nuts, not the regular nylon kind, the other kind. Right now I've got both rod ends loose because I've got to adjust the angle. I've got the saddle bolts in this drive shaft. Those were 16 foot-pounds-ish to 27/16. These 2 bolts in these rod ends are 15/16. Up here at the front, these 4 outer bolts were 13 millimeters, and I just kind of ran them up until I felt good about it. Here, these, I personally ended up using a 19 millimeter on these. I think they're actually standard. And I torqued them to 46 foot-pounds upper and lower, and I put a little bit of grease in the bushing. You need to go ahead and take care of this one outside of the car because your drive shaft is going to be in the way. Here we're going to go ahead and zero the angle gauge on the balancer bolt. Then we're going to come back to the back and give it a check. Before you go tweaking on your pinion angle, make sure you've got the car fully loaded on the axle. We're going to go back there and I'm going to set this thing to -2 degrees for now, and then we'll torque up those back bolts probably to around 50 foot-pounds. Got about a 1/2 inch of thread showing on the top, and then this one right here is probably about all the way out. I have no clue what the angle is right now. Now we're going to go ahead and throw in the Suspension Engineering Panhard relocation bar. First, with your suspension free hanging, go ahead and take the bolt out of the Panhard bar over here. I had to get a hold of the spring right here and kind of spin it a little bit. The rear end being unloaded, you should be able to grab this and move it as you need to. Your plates are going to go on there like this fat side down toward the bottom. This is going to go up in the middle of here on the top side. Your factory bolts have to come in from the front of the car. They've got a little bit of a cam, like kind of like a larger piece here. So these must go in from the front. In my case, this front bolt, it's a little bit corroded on the shaft, so I'm gonna have to try to knock it in there. Right now we're up here on the back driver side, throwing in these 3 15 millimeter headed bolts that originally came out of it. Now we're gonna see if we can get our lower track bar back into this thing. I got all this loosely together. These are kind of tightened a little bit with a ratchet because this for me was bowed out and I had to fight it a lot. It only came with this one new bolt. It doesn't fit in these upper 2 holes, so I'm assuming it goes to the lower Panhard bar. That's how I have it right now. I had to fight this thing quite a bit to get my bolt to go through there and line up. So I'm guessing that that's kind of just one of the costs of having a cheap kit. But let's go ahead and torque this thing up. It says online to take these three 15mm bolts up to 60 foot-pounds. Me personally, I'm just going to take them to 50 because I think for these, how small these little bolts are, 60 is a little excessive. I did end up tightening those 15mm over there to 60 foot-pounds like the instructions say. These two, upper two, get 72 foot-pounds, and so will this one, but you need to jack the rear end up before you tighten this. Forgot to mention these two are 18mm nuts. I'm using an adjustable wrench on these just because that's what I had laying on the ground next to me. Chassis's loaded now, and we're going to throw 90 foot-pounds on this bottom bolt. On this one, the nut side for me is a 7/8. I'm going to use my adjustable again. All right, we're back underneath the car now. I'm going to go zero out my angle gauge on the balancer bolt. In the back here, we've got both of our rod ends loose and the jam nuts loose as well. All right, here's a live look of making the adjustment here. Looks like a half turn equals about a half a degree on this thing. We got our final angle here of -1.9. Best torque spec I could find on these rear two bolts is 50 foot-pounds, so I'm going to throw that down right now. That sums up the install of the Suspension Engineering Panhard relocation bar and their torque arm. From here, we're going to go ahead and put the 1 7/8 headers on the car and the true dual 3-inch setup. Please go ahead and subscribe. It means a lot to me. We're going to start calling this thing Project 1099, and we're going to make a build series out of this. So I've got a couple more exciting parts sitting on the shelf, and I'm collecting things actively. In the meantime, spin those wrenches, and I'll see you next time.